Y'all for coming this afternoon to our Heritage Community Forum. We've got several guests here this evening. First of all, we have Heritage Service Newport. We have the American Red Cross. We have Emergency Management. Read this. It's the North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services Emergency Programs. So we have a full evening. Again, thank you for coming. But we need to do a couple of housekeeping chores before we go any further. In the event we have to evacuate the building, you have exits to your left and you have exits to your right. Restrooms are over on the other side. If you go back like you're going out of the building, you go straight forward, make a left, the restrooms are over on the other side. Again, thank you for coming. We'll go ahead and get started, and we're going to turn it over to Eric. Really, they are doing Did everybody hear me all right? You hear me in the back? Is that better? That's okay, that should be good. So good evening, everyone. My name is Eric Hayden. I'm a meteorologist with the Weather Service in Newport, Morehead City. We're going to talk a little bit about hurricane preparedness tonight. Just a show of hands, how many of you have lived here in Duplin County for more than 5 years? So a good amount. We have some new folks, but a large amount that have been here for a while. We appreciate new people and experienced folks coming to this talk. We're going to talk about a couple things, but if you just focus on these bullets at the front, that's all we really want you to remember. Number one is do one thing today to get prepared for hurricane season. So that can of non-perishable food that you've been meaning to get this weekend. The case of water that you know you should have, get this weekend. Try to become prepared after this talk. I know a lot of us have been putting it off, and it's been quiet. You know, the next week or so it might still be quiet, but our time is going to be up at some point. The peak of the season is not until about the middle of September, so we still have a long way to go. Water is what kills. Most of our deaths in hurricanes are water related. It has nothing to do with wind. And never, ever, ever, ever focus on just the category of the storm. Category is important. I'm not telling you to ignore it, but all it tells you is how strong will the wind be. It doesn't tell you how much rain you're going to have, what side of the county is going to get hit with the storm. Is it going to stall over you for 4 days or so forth? Raise your hand if you've heard that this season might be kind of busy, hurricane season. So the prediction is for it to be a 90% chance of an above normal season, and that was updated August 8th. We don't throw around 90% that often. Usually we're kind of 50, 60, we're kind of in the middle because there's a lot of variables. You can have a lot of things in place for it to be an active year, but things can mess it up just as easily. But we really preach it takes just one storm. Until I can say that a storm is going to hit the county and what date it's going to hit or how many you're going to get, the forecast doesn't really help you out. You should prepare no matter what. We could have the windiest hurricane season on record, only one storm the whole season. And if it hits our county, it's a big deal. So it's not just a talking point, it's reality. Where we live, you should be preparing each and every year, no matter what that forecast says. A show of hands, and be honest, I saw a lot of hands, you've lived here for a while. How many are familiar with the local Weather Service website? Not talking about Channel 12 or Channel 9 or the Weather Channel. National Weather Service out of Newport or the National Weather Service like in Wilmington or Raleigh. So a decent amount. That is one thing I do want you to remember. Each of you pays $4 a year per person for all the weather information you want. Whether it's the Weather Channel, the local news, anytime you look at a radar, anytime you look at a weather model, anytime you look at a satellite, that is our information. Not mine, not the county's, our information. You've all paid for it. And that starts with the local office. We cover Duplin County. So if you just remember weather.gov, that's all you need to remember. And you can just click on Eastern North Carolina. If you're on vacation down in Myrtle Beach, just click down in South Carolina. Just remember weather.gov. Lots of information, forecasts, current conditions, specifically for tropical watches, warnings, the briefings we send to the county, they are all displayed on the website. I'm going to talk about a preparedness page. I'm going to talk about hurricane graphics. It's all on that website. And if you can't remember that last bullet, if it's the weather you love, it's weather.gov. Again, just please remember weather.gov. You've already paid for that information. And I always say, would you trust somebody more from Wilmington, Raleigh, or Newport than Atlanta State College or some state away? We live in your community. We care about you. We want you to check out the local resources we have. One good way to do that is social media. Who's on Facebook? Still on Facebook. Who is on Instagram? Who is on Twitter, or X as they call it now? YouTube? Because I know you've been on YouTube to look to see how to change the filter in your car. It's a great way to, right? See, we all look at YouTube to figure out how to do things, fix things around the house. We're on social media. All you need to search is NWS for National Weather Service, Morehead City. So no matter what platform, check it out. And I'm being serious. We brief the county on hurricanes and winter storms. We post the same thing on YouTube. It's not a 30-second TikTok video. It's not a quick tweet, but it's 5 or 10-minute video of exactly what we're telling the community. So there's no shortage of information. Your challenge is to follow official sources of information. The county, the state, the Hurricane Center, our site, some official sources of information. Local news is a good source as well. You're going to wear yourself out if you follow social media and people that talk about storms 2 weeks out. They're always talking about storms. I would always be right if I mentioned every storm on the horizon. There's lots of woulda, shoulda, coulda storms that never happen. Don't waste your energy. You don't need to focus on all that noise. We will let you know with plenty of time what is happening and heading your way. Your challenge is to focus on consistent information instead of all the noise that is out there. Another good website to remember, you can find it on our page. You don't need to bookmark this, but some people like to go to the Hurricane Center directly. Hurricanes.gov. Again, hurricanes.gov. I would be remiss if I didn't mention our tech support. My oldest son, Christian Hayden, up front. I'm not sure about how much he likes weather, but he loves computers and gadgets. So in the summertime, he always comes and helps me set things up. If you don't know what that crazy looking symbol is in the upper right, the QR code, he will help you after this to put it on your phone. Essentially, you just take a picture of that and you can pull up the website and save it. And just see Mr. Christian for that part. But hurricanes.gov, National Hurricane Center site is fantastic. A show of hands, how many are familiar with this forecast each day? It's called the Tropical Weather Outlook. Does anybody look at that? So that's how we tell like the real weather enthusiasts, the people that are really into the weather know about this. This is issued 4 times a day. The local news shows it. Again, the Weather Channel shows it. It just shows where we think there's a low, medium, or high chance of a tropical system forming. So low, medium, high, or if there's an actual storm out there. This is not what's happening right now. Knock on wood, it is very calm out there right now. We want to keep it that way. But that's something you should check once a day. It's updated 4 times a day, but just check it first thing in the morning. Is there anything I should be concerned with? And then if not, just move on with your day. But that will let you know before a storm even gets a name, before it's even within 5 days of us, hey, there's a storm coming off the coast of Africa. I should kind of start paying attention. This is probably the most used graphic from the Hurricane Center. It's a forecast cone of where the storm is going to go. It's also the most misinterpreted graphic. A lot of people see this and say, I'm in the path, I'm worried. Ooh, I'm out of the path, I don't have to worry about it anymore. This only shows you the most probable path for the center of the storm. I went to school for meteorology. I'm not a lawyer. That's written like a lawyer. Only the center of the storm. Doesn't show you where the who's going to be impacted and who won't. Doesn't show you how much rain, what the storm surge will be. It's only where we think the center of the storm is going to go. And a hurricane is not just a dot on the map. It's hundreds of miles across. So if you're anywhere close to this, you should be paying attention. If it's heading into Florida, you're paying attention. South Carolina, Georgia, you're paying attention. Delaware, Virginia, you're paying attention. It's not an in or out type of thing. For example, just down the road in New Bern and Kinston, those folks were not in the path, the cone, as Florence got closer. It's because the center wasn't predicted to hit there, hit by Wrightsville Beach. Did we have an impact in those areas? Did we have an impact? You sure bet we did. So it shows you where the center will go. Pay attention to it just for an idea of where the storm center will go, but please don't look at it as an in or out type of thing. One more graphic on the Hurricane Center site. There is a ton of information. I just picked the most usable formats. This one, time of arrival, you've decided to evacuate, you've decided to stay, you want to board up your house, clean up your lawn, bring stuff in, whatever you choose to do, this graphic is your friend. Arrival time of tropical storm force winds. So this case, southern Georgia, sometime Thursday evening. So that will give you an idea, not just when the center will get here, because the center doesn't matter. That's only halfway through the storm. You want to know when those fringe winds are getting here. That information is on the website. And again, you do not have to decipher this. This is on the Hurricane Center site, ours, local news, the county puts this out. There's not a lack of information. You just have to know what to look at and what not to look at. That's what the most important thing is. So we're here tonight to talk about preparedness. We try to put it all in one spot. Again, there's that fancy QR code in the upper right that you can scan. Or if you're familiar with our website, all you have to do is add /hurricane prep. All you need to do. We've got graphics in Spanish, videos for the deaf and hard of hearing, information about know your zone, evacuation zones in the county. What should you have in your kit? What should you do to your home? Cash on hand, insurance checkup. The whole kitchen sink is on that website. FEMA has a great website. There's a tremendous amount of information online. One thing to point out, planning now is key. I'm very thankful you're here today. If I were you, what is it, 75, 80 out? We finally got rid of the rain and humidity. Pretty nice night, so I'm really glad you're here. Pretty easy to plan right now. Stress level's low. We don't have any storm on the horizon. Easy peasy. If we have a storm 5 days out, you're going to be a lot more stressed. If we have a storm 5 days out, the stores may not have everything you need. They have plenty of water. They have plenty of canned goods. They've got it all right now. So planning is very easy. Think about your life. For those that have a lot of experience, think about when you had to make hard decisions. When you were under stress, sometimes you made good ones, sometimes you made really bad ones. You probably made the best decisions in your life when you were not stressed. You had time to think about things. So that's why we're talking preparedness now and not waiting until the storm gets here. It's a 3-step process. It's not just having a kit. It's not just about evacuating. You've got to start with your vulnerability. What is your vulnerability? It is weather. Do you live in a flood-prone area? Do you live by a body of water? Have you flooded before? I highly encourage you to Google NC flood maps. North Carolina has done a really good job installing gauges and also showing you where floodplains are. You do need to understand what a 100-year and 500-year flood means. It's a 1 in 100 chance any year. It's a 1 in 500 chance any year. It's just like lottery tickets. You can buy 3 in a row and you win, and you don't win for another 20 tickets. So it's not a, I had the flood, it's not going to happen for another 500 years. It's more a statistic. But knowing your elevation and knowing your proximity to flooding, extremely important. Some of you have lived it. You know you live in a bad spot because you've had flooding. Newer folks, you may not realize. So knowing your elevation or looking at those flood maps, Google NC flood maps, extremely good information. That's weather. I'm a meteorologist. Your risk includes more than weather. Who lives in your house? I've got 3 teenage kids, 16, 15, and 10. Very busy. That's half the reason why Christian's here. When we get a storm, they're out of here. We send them out of here because my job, I stay. So that's my vulnerability. My mom is almost 80. I grew up in Maryland, and she moved down to live closer to us as she gets older. My vulnerability is higher because guess what? I get to evacuate 2 houses now and think about 2 families. You have kids, grandkids, cats, dogs. Whoever's in your house is who you need to think about. So that is your vulnerability. If you're a young guy and you're single, you can just pick up and move. But if you have kids, grandkids, family, elderly parents, if I'm out of electricity, it stinks. I don't have air conditioning, but I'm not reliant on oxygen or dialysis. I don't need electricity for my health. Those are all vulnerabilities you need to think of with preparedness. Step 2, a hurricane kit. Bare minimum, you should have 3 days of food, water, medicine, anything you need to survive on your own. So you need to think of everything. Prescriptions, you're running low, you should get those filled up. Contacts, glasses, medicine, anything. Non-perishable goods. We put 3 days there, but really, if you can, up to a week would be best. You might be okay, but the store down the road is not. The road down the road from you is washed out. The store needs to restock because they're out of power. It takes a while to get back. We live in a society where we can just go down the street, order on Amazon, and a day or two, everything's here. That stops when we have a storm. It takes a long time to get back. I understand that not all of us can do that. We can't all go to the store this weekend and get everything, and that's all right. If you spread it out, you get your canned goods this weekend, your water next weekend, and you spread it out, that will spread out the financial impact. So everybody can do it, you just have to break it into small parts. And please don't forget anybody in your family. That includes pets and everybody living with you. So step 1, how vulnerable am I? Step 2, kit, at least 7 days if you can. And step 3, please have a plan to evacuate. So we have a lot of experience in the room. Show of hands, who did leave during Florence? Just out of curiosity. Anybody leave? All right. How about Matthew? Anybody leave? All right. Did you all have flooding, or were you okay where you were? Around. But where you were, okay. So nobody in this room evacuated for 2 of our bigger storms. Please do me a favor and at least have a plan, because you all were okay. Maybe you live on a high ground, maybe you have a generator, maybe you're good to go. What if you have a medical emergency? These fine gentlemen and ladies at the back need to come and help you. They might have to get a boat to get to you. They may not be able to get to you. Roads are washed out. Roads are flooded. It's not just about, are you okay, but can people respond to help you? The winds are too high and the roads are washed out. They may not be able to get to you. So please keep that in mind. Even if you would never, ever leave. Eric, I've never left and I'm never going to leave. Just have an idea where you would go. Because if you think about it now, you're going to make a good decision. I like to try to have 2 places to go, a northern and southern route, one that's opposite. So again, my plan A for my family was Maryland. Just get out of here. Florence, Matthew, go up there. I don't have family there anymore, so plan A is gone. So we've got family in South Carolina, mountains, wherever. You can't just go to Raleigh or Goldsboro. Sometimes you can. Sometimes it's just a coastal impact. It just depends. Think about families that visit us. Do you get family visiting you throughout the year? We live close enough to the beach. It's a nice area. Go visit them. A hotel, staying with a family member is a much better option than a shelter. A shelter is a safe place, but it's not the Hilton or Marriott. It's not as comfortable as it would be if you were with a relative or if you were with a family member or at a hotel. So again, a lot of us didn't leave, but please have a plan. Because there will come a day where we have a storm that will make you want to leave, and you don't want to make that decision 5 days out. You want to kind of have an idea of it now. The reason why I'm going so strong on this is our coastline, and I know last time I checked, Brian, we're still not at the coast. So last time I checked, we're still not at the coast, but our coastline, which is just a stone's throw that way, is the most vulnerable stretch of coastline in the entire country. So again, our North Carolina coast, beautiful, most vulnerable in the whole country. This is a return map. It shows an interval between hurricanes, 5 to 7 years on average across eastern North Carolina that we get storms. We stick out, we've got the Outer Banks. You might say, if you're new, hey, I don't live on the coast. Well, hurricanes produce a lot of rain, and we have just as bad of impacts inland, sometimes worse, than they do at the coast. So that's why we preach preparedness so hard. Just a little example, the storm of 1908, I had to do some digging on this for Chickapin. This was actually the 3rd highest crest that we've ever had. That was with the tropical system. Back before the 50s, storms were not named. So they were either just called a storm of whatever year it was, or if they impacted like a certain community or country, they got a name based on that. But you'll hear the old timers talk about Faison and certainly Floyd and Matthew and Florence. So the list goes on and on and on of storms that have impacted our community. We'll show you some pictures if you haven't been in the community, or maybe you have, just to re-emphasize that we get a lot of flooding in the county, that we become a lot of islands. So again, you might be okay where you are, but down the road it's not. It might be hard to get around. I stated starting in May, time to prepare is now. We've had storms as early as May, but we really are playing with it right now. We are in this peak, August 20th to September 10th. We're on the uphill climb. This is a frequency of tropical storms and hurricanes. So all those big names I mentioned, outside of like Irene, the Matthews, the Floyds, the Florences, they were all September and October. Let me repeat, they were all September and October. Kids go back to school, it's after Labor Day. We still get some of our worst storms, usually September and October. So please keep that in mind. If you were not aware, hurricane season is long, lasts well into the month of October in our area. Our biggest challenge is messaging. It's not really getting it right. I mean, you know, we get forecasts wrong time to time. Confidence is more or less sometimes time to time, but it's pretty rare that you're totally caught off guard of something happening. It's believing it could be that bad, to have an imagination that it could really be that bad right here. And a lot of people focus on that category. Categories only wind. Think about the news. It's a Cat 4, it's a Cat 3, it's a 2. With Florence, a lot of people were scared because it was a 4, which I'm glad because they took it serious. But as it diminished in the wind speed, it lowered to a 1. Category doesn't say anything about rain, doesn't say that you had a foot of rain last week with Debbie, doesn't say that you got hit on the right side of the storm. It doesn't say anything about that. And a lot of people say, I'm not going to leave unless it's a 2 or 3 or 4. That is very misguided. It's only focused on wind. I'm not saying to ignore it. Mr. Eric's not saying if we get a 4, oh, he said don't worry about the category, look at everything else. No, it's just part of the puzzle, not the whole thing. So a lot of just ones for our community. Just remember, Florence and Matthew were just ones. Florence and Matthew were just ones. Not a ton of wind, but lots of flooding. We had wind, but flooding was the big thing. Water's what kills. Statistically, 85% of people that die in a hurricane, it's water related. Could a tree fall on your house? Yes. Could a tree fall on your car and injure or kill you? Yes, it can happen. But 85% says it's going to be flooding, rip currents at the beach, or storm surge closer to the coast. And those are all pictures of our community. We lost 15 people in Florence in the state. 11 were flooding, and all 11 were in vehicles. So never ever cross a flooded road. This is a little graphic. Brian, if you didn't know from the county, loves meteorology. So I had to put something more meteorological in here. That's the eye of Floyd. You know, everybody knows that's the center of the storm. This is an infrared satellite picture. What it shows is higher cloud tops. Those are the showers and storms. And the point I want to convey is, as we loop this again, stare at that center of the storm. It's way down here. When are we starting to be impacted by the storm? Many days and hours before the center even gets here. The point of emphasis is impacts occur well ahead of the storm and can last for many, many days. So there's a lot of focus on where is it going to hit, who is it going to hit, what category is it going to be. Obviously, it's important. If it hits Texas, we don't have to worry about it. But just because it hits Myrtle Beach, Wilmington, Jacksonville, doesn't mean we're out of the woods. Unfortunately, that puts us on the right side, and we're kind of in the thick of things. We're doing a really good job, thanks to the county and the Red Cross. Preparedness, we're doing pretty good. People are getting their kits. Some folks are evacuating. People are getting the information. I would say, by and large, year by year, we're doing a much better job than even back in like Matthew. In terms of getting the information out, I think we're doing a better job. Where we need to improve is after the storm. If you get that fancy generator, know how to use it. Don't use it in an enclosed space. You might say, Eric, I didn't come to a hurricane talk on what night is it? Thursday night or Wednesday night. It's beautiful out to here. I shouldn't use a generator in my garage. We've lost people in the state because of that factor, carbon monoxide poisoning. The water is nasty. We have septic systems. We have lost people that have had injuries on their leg and they have gotten infections. Don't be going through the water. If you evacuate, stay away. If you decide to stay, stay in. You don't need to survey your yard right away. You don't need to be going in that water. If you're not usually on a ladder, if you're not usually doing yard work, let one of these younger people in the audience do that work for you. Electrocutions, falling off of ladders, carbon monoxide poisoning, more than half our deaths now occur after the storm. Those are very preventable. Those are just more common sense things. And when there's a natural disaster, you're stressed. Your stress to the max and your mental capacity might not be the same. So that's why you make mistakes like that. So we're going to end with this, and we're going to turn it over to Mr. Brian. He's got some information from the county. If I'm telling you that you should focus on the category, what should you focus on? Rainfall, flooding, rip currents, wind, and tornadoes. And I confirmed with Brian, we thought about this for a long time, but last time I checked, we still don't get storm surge up here, right? So we took that off the list. So flash flooding. When the water exceeds the capacity of the conduit under the road, it's planned for so many inches of rain, so many year flood. When it exceeds that capacity of that PVC pipe or whatever it is, it erodes around it and it washes out the road. The other thing, this is why I like to do these talks. Mr. Matthew from the county and Mr. Brian, they're way smarter than I am about this kind of stuff. So I just do the talk and I just go along. But somebody pointed out in this white line, here's your water line here. So again, you might be okay where you are, but things getting to you may not happen. Hurricanes category is not an indication of how much rain is going to fall. Florence was a 1 and we got 20 to 30 inches of rain. Cars can float in less than 2 feet of water. This is one that we show. Some of you have probably seen this 100 times. This is up by Hookerton, northwest of here towards Snow Hill. Water's very powerful. 1.5 feet can carry you away. If you don't believe that, how many of you can see really well at night when you're driving? You love to drive at night, right? You can see really well. Even at my young age, I can't see really well at night. And think about when it's raining. Can you see really well at night when it's raining? So you don't know how deep that water is, and you don't know if the road exists underneath it. It's not a scare tactic. This is our community. This happens. I didn't have to look this up on Google and some other country and make up these crazy images. This is our community. So it's not just the speed of the water, it's you don't know if the road exists. So if you decide to stay in. If you decide to evacuate, stay away. Don't be in a rush to get back. We're many tiny islands in the county with water all around us. So turn around, don't drown. We've lost people that have gone around barriers and barricades that the DOT has put out. So again, never ever cross a flooded road, and especially at night, be careful with driving. We do have rivers. Last time I checked in the county, down by the coast. That's a joke because we don't have some of them. Places like Dare County, river flooding, like Chickapin, Northeast Cape Fear River. Some of our areas can last for many days and weeks. It might not be the peak of the water levels, but they can remain in flood state for quite some time. And it's dependent on rainfall. We can get a lot of rain up toward Raleigh and not a lot of rain down here and still have river flooding. So it just depends where that heavy rain sets up. But we saw with Matthew and Florence, and even to a much lesser extent with Debbie. If we get 5-10 inches of rain, we're going to have some trouble. And if it's over a foot, that's going to be a big deal for us. Last week we had Ernesto. It was safely out to sea, but we were waving our hands about rip currents. Unfortunately, we lost a young person in Surf City. We lose more people in North Carolina each year to rip currents than tornadoes, lightning, hurricane winds, and flooding combined. So let me say that again. We lose more people just because of rip currents than tornadoes, lightning, flooding, and wind combined. All added up. In fact, it's more than a factor of 4. Usually about 10 per year. You don't see a tornado. You don't hear thunder. Often they can occur on some of the nicest beach weather like we had last weekend. Distant storm Lorenzo in 2019 killed 4 at our beaches. It was 2,000 miles away. It's nothing to be afraid of, but you do need to pay attention. If a red flag is at the beach, you should not be in the water. If at all possible, swim at a lifeguarded beach. If you get caught in a rip current, nothing to be afraid of. What happens is you get pulled out. And when you're in deeper water, even if you know how to swim, you may panic and try to fight it. Especially if mom and dad are saying, hey, Christian, you're getting out too far, and telling you to come back. Instead, instruct them to swim left or right or parallel, and then they can come in safely back. A lot of people that die are bystanders trying to help. We are a giving society. We're a helpful society. You want to help somebody stuck in the water. Don't go in after them. Direct them where to go. That will put you at a much safer position, and it will also save their lives as well. They're not to be afraid of. Surfers take them to go out to the waves, then they ride the waves in. So natural occurring breaks in the sandbar, but the problem is they occur without some sort of ominous look in the sky, and sometimes people are caught off guard unless they know what the flag system means and things like that. Second to last is wind. We get wind in the county. We certainly do. Do we lose power? Yeah. Can comms lines be out? Yes. But with the friction of our earth and our trees, the wind really dies down as it gets inland. Most of the strong winds are at the coast, but all you need is a wind above 50, 60 miles per hour down tree, you lose power. Can close roads and things like that, and it can cause property damage. The reason why I'm showing you this is, how many of you remember Hurricane Arthur in 2014? It was a Category 2, it hit by Beaufort. Not too many. And then there was another one. So Brian's into weather, so I figured he'd know, and Matthew remember. What about Irene in 2011? You remember that one? You remember that one, Irene? But it was just a one though. And you
Fran.
And Fran. But you remember Irene and Fran? Fran's a 3.
That's more than that.
Fran is bad. My trick with this is Arthur was a 2, made landfall, Cape Lookout, so no trickery. Small, compact, fast moving. That's why you don't remember it. Irene was a 1, a whole category lower. Hit it the same spot, no trickery. It didn't hit it in a different location. Larger, slower moving. So look at all of the impacts. Don't just look at the number. And I know Fran, that was a 3 coming upon landfall, so that was a bad one. Last but not least, tornadoes. We lost a person in Debbie last week toward Wilson County up toward Raleigh. With a tropical cyclone, it's already spinning. So you can imagine that there could be tornadoes. It could be a tropical storm, depression. It doesn't have to be a full-blown hurricane. So you decide to stay because it's not that bad out. That's fine. You decide to stay. It's a tropical storm Debbie. Nobody's evacuating for tropical storm Debbie. Have this phone turned on, charged up, and not turned on, do not disturb at night. Have a NOAA weather radio that will wake you up. That's battery powered. If it's during the day, watch the local news. You're probably not out shopping, might not be in school or at work, but you may quickly, within minutes, need to seek shelter downstairs away from windows. And it really stinks because a lot of these storms, Debbie, not a huge deal. Yes, we had some heavy rain, but for the most part, not a big deal unless you lost your life or unless it hit your community. We had a lot of tornadoes with Debbie. This is Bogan left here. This is Hurricane Dorian. The last thing I want to tell you about is this image was taken 18 hours before the center got up near our area. Often those first bands of rain, well before landfall, that's when they occur. So if you decide to stay inside. If you decide to leave, stay away. So Mr. Brian, you can walk up here. We're going to, in about 30 seconds, Christian, we can load Mr. Brian's slides. Share this information. I know a lot of people could not be here tonight. We got school starting up. It's busy time of year. Share this information with them. Remember to focus on impacts. Don't make your decisions just based on category. And please do not forget after the storm. One more slide, buddy. My email is up there. I'm going to switch gears and turn it over to Mr. Brian to focus on the county. And we have Department of Health, Public Health here as well. That's my email. We will be here anytime, any day of the week to do this. If you didn't like it, you can still send me an email and say it stinks. You should shorten it, sweeten it, whatever. But we will work tirelessly to educate our public. So if you want me in your church, your school, wherever you want us, if you are happy with this, we will come do it. Just shoot me an email. The community doesn't know about this kind of information unless they listen to the county, or they listen to the health department, or they listen to the weather service. There's a lot of good information. It's just folks aren't aware of what is out there. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Brian. Are you more comfortable over there, or you want to come up here? You're welcome. You're welcome.
Can I add 2 things to your preference?
Sure.
You can't keep the carcass. Another, you can't have a
Those great points. And I'd be remiss to say, we are recording this. Don't worry, we're not recording any of you, just the lovely faces up front. Miss Darrow is from the Red Cross. I'm just repeating it for the online audience and the recording. 2 great points she made, having plenty of cash on hand and also a full gas tank. You do not want to be running around empty prior to a storm. All right, Mr. Ryan, you are all set.
Can everybody hear me okay without this thing? Perfect. Thank you for coming. We really appreciate it. We can't do our job without community support. Eric can't do his job without community support. Our ladies from the health department, they can't do their job without community support. So it means a lot for you to take time out of your Wednesday evening to be here, and hopefully you get something out of it. One thing that Eric talks about, and this is a big push with the National Weather Service, is don't focus on the category. It only takes one. Hurricane Isabel, 2003, made landfall in Drum Inlet, a pretty weak category 2. Still 100-mile-an-hour winds, but a weak 2. I was 8 years old. There you go. I was 8 years old, and it is a storm that I will never forget. I'm not originally from Duplin County. I was born and raised on a little island called Harker's Island in Carteret County. Anybody ever heard of Harker's Island? Yeah. We had our fair share of storms, a lot of the wind damage piece of it for us, but hardly a category 2 in a storm I'll never forget. The amount of floodwaters, the amount of damage, and that scenario can very easily happen here. And we can get hyper-focused on what that category is, but at the end of the day, it takes one. It takes one to change your life forever, our life forever, the geography forever. So that's the strong push that the National Weather Service is making, one that we wholeheartedly believe in, and just something that we need the community's help push. Real quick, I want to introduce some people in the back. In the black shirt, standing by the red door, this is Mr. Matthew Barwick. He is your Director of Emergency Management in the County Fire Marshal. Gray shirt in front of the white door, this is Mr. Dustin Swinson. He is our Training Officer and Compliance Officer for EMS. Gray shirt beside him, this is Mr. Logan Blizzard. He is our Deputy Fire Marshal. But between the 4 of us, and then some others, we make up the staff of your emergency operations. So when storms come, just like Eric, we don't leave. We don't have the opportunity to leave. We are in that emergency operations center supporting the operations of the county. I could not do my job without these folks. And again, we could not do our job well without the support. So, who has ever heard of Know Your Zone? Nobody? Okay. My presentation is going to be pretty short. This is a new program that we rolled out last year in the county. That's something that we were trying to push, trying to get the message out there that this exists in Duplin County now. So it's going to be a pretty short presentation, focused on nothing but Know Your Zone. So Know Your Zone is an evacuation initiative with the goal of educating residents on evacuation zones within the county that target the vulnerable areas based off of flooding. Know Your Zone is a state system. It's a state system across the East Coast. There's a lot of states that have enrolled in this program. But it helps us highlight those vulnerable areas that may or may not receive higher amounts of rainfall, river flooding. For our coastal counties, it's very big on storm surge. So a little bit of the background. It's a tiered evacuation system. split up into zones that develops those highlighted areas that are vulnerable to impacts, such as hurricanes, tropical storms, and flooding. The predetermined evacuation zones exist right now in 21 counties on the east coast of North Carolina. Initially, when this program was rolled out a couple of years ago through state emergency management, it was a coastal evacuation process. We worked for probably almost 2 years to get enrolled in that program. And with the help of all of our colleagues, the National Weather Service, State Emergency Management, we were the first inland county in North Carolina to become part of the Know Your Zone program. So zones for counties involved in the program were developed using a couple of different metrics, some scientific data, some historical data, such as storm surge modeling, and this is across the entire program, but the storm surge modeling is more for your coastal counties. Flood zones created by FEMA's NFIP program, or the National Flood Insurance Program. Historical river flood data, elevation contour mapping, and satellite imagery of historical flooding. So in Duplin County, we looked at the big picture. We looked at historical storms all the way into the 90s, what areas flooded, what areas didn't, and decided that we needed to create 2 zones based off of that. So we have a Zone A and a Zone B. Zone A was pretty simple. Zone A, we pulled from FEMA's 100-year flood zone. Trick question. What does 100-year flood zone mean? Eric talked about it earlier. Does it mean it only happens once every 100 years? Or there's 1 in 100 chance of it happening this year? Yeah. So that was Zone A. Zone B, we pulled a lot of different things together. We started out with a base map of the 500-year flood zone. Again, 1 in a 500 chance that's going to happen right now. We looked at historical river flood data for Hurricane Florence, Hurricane Matthew, Fran, and Floyd. We looked at satellite imagery following the river crest during Hurricane Florence. The state and federal government rolled out some satellite images that were taken just before the river crested in Tinkerton. We got access to that map, that area, and added on to that 500-year flood. One thing I think is important to note is that aerial image of flooding from Florence extended beyond the 500-year flood zone. So you'll hear a lot of people talk about Florence was a 500-year flood. But for the southern part of the county, there are areas that were beyond that 500, outside of a flood zone. So it's not always focused on FEMA's flood program. It will and can extend beyond that. The last thing we looked at was land elevation contours that range from 10 feet to 38 feet. So anyone's house that sits between 10 and 38 feet was included in Zone B. That was again based off of historical data, some data very specific from Hurricane Florence. 37 feet was the cutoff point for Florence. Most places that were 37 feet didn't flood, at least the house didn't. And anything much below that, close to the creek. Zone A is your red shaded area. Again, Zone A is solely that 100-year flood zone. That zone contains 3,457 addresses. One thing I want to note, that 3,457 address points isn't all residential properties. That's a combination of residential properties, agricultural properties, and commercial properties. We don't have a way to distinguish between that. Zone B, where your orange shaded area, is 2,655 address points. Again, that includes commercial, agricultural, and residential. So how are we going to determine where we evacuate, when we decide to pull a trigger on a zone A evacuation versus a zone B evacuation. I wish I could stand here right now and tell you the exact way we're going to make that decision. But we can't. Everything changes. Nothing's the same between a Category 1 storm this year and a Category 1 storm next year. It would be very simple for us to say, at a Category 3 hurricane, we're going to do a voluntary evacuation of zone A, or a voluntary evacuation of zone A and B. But as Eric said, that category doesn't really matter. It's what impacts you directly, what impacts our county directly, what impacts our state directly. So some of the things that we're going to look at is the anticipated rainfall amount. That's going to help us get an idea of what we can expect for localized flash flooding and how much rain we're at the river. Current river stage and river pass. Storm surge levels affecting the Northeast Cape Fear River. Hopefully we don't see this, but it is a possibility. Forward movement speed of the storm. With Florence was moving pretty quickly, stalled for what, 36 hours there? Yeah, it just started raining. So we're going to look at what that forward movement speed is. Very same thing with Debbie that we just dealt with. In the beginning, that stall was a little questionable on where it was going to happen. Obviously, the further north it happens, the more it's going to affect us. The amount of seasonal rainfall prior to the storm. If it's been a dry year, rainfall from a hurricane may not affect us as much as it would if it's been a wet year. The last thing, and this is the most important point, is guidance from the National Hurricane Center and the National Weather Service. We rely very strongly on our partners with the National Weather Service to help make these decisions. They're not going to make the decision for us, but they're going to give us all the details, all the data, and all the information we need to try to make an educated, good decision. Know your zone website. If you have a phone or a pen or a piece of paper or something, I'm going to give you the website that you can type your address in, search your address, and it's going to tell you what zone you're in. That address is, website is knowyourzone.nc. .gov. Our health department partners are going to have some information on that. Again, that's knowyourzone.nc.gov. Don't put www in front of it because it won't work. I don't know why, it just won't. So knowyourzone.nc.gov. When you go to the website, this first picture over here, this is what you're going to see. You're going to see a map with a little search bar. Type your address, 123 Main Street. Hit enter. It's going to zoom in to a map similar to the one on the bottom of the screen, showing a little pinpoint area on your location or your house, your address. And then it's going to pop up one of these two boxes. It's going to tell you you're in zone A or you're in zone B. If it doesn't tell you anything, you're not in the zone. We did not cover the entire county in zones because that would partially defeat the purpose of the program. We want to highlight vulnerable areas within the county. When you get to this website and it pops up this information box with what zone you live in, there's going to be some links to the county website, the Facebook page, and then a link to a system called HyperReach, which our health department folks are going to speak about in just a second. Anybody ever heard of HyperReach? HyperReach is a reverse 911 system that you go home to the website, you register your house, your address, your phone numbers, and that signs you up for what we call wireless emergency alerts through your phone. So when the National Weather Service issues a tornado warning or a flash flood warning, severe thunderstorm warning, you're going to get a phone call through that system letting you know of severe weather issues coming. The other side of it is we as county officials can push information out through that system. So something that I wouldn't say happens often, but boil water advisories. If you've registered your address and there's a water line break near you, we'll go into that system and we'll send you a notification through text message, phone call, email, letting you know that there's a boil water advisory. If we decide to issue evacuations for either of these zones or both, we'll push that through hyperreach, as well as social media, Facebook, the county's website, news media, any source that we can get that. We'll let the weather service know. Maybe they can post it on their Facebook page. But it's a good idea to sign up for that system. One, you can get notifications from the weather service, and two, you'll get any critical notifications. So why did we make the decision to enroll in New Year's? Everybody who lives in Duplin County. One of the reasons we implemented Know Your Zone was to reduce the burden on Duplin County shelters from coastal evacuations. You look at a map, Onslow County, Carter County, Craven County, those counties around us, when they issue an evacuation, one of the very first, if not the very first, inland county they get to is Duplin County. There's a misconception that during a hurricane, when you evacuate, if you make it to an inland county, you're in the clear, right? Not right. So that's the very first reason we started looking into the process, was to try to help prevent that, to draw attention to the vulnerabilities that exist within Duplin County and help people understand that if you evacuate from the coastal counties around us, you don't need to stop here. We're still going to feel effects from the storm. It's still not safe here. Keep going west. So that's the first reason. Second reason was to help bring awareness to the areas at risk of flooding within the county, using those NFIP or the flood insurance program zones, as well as some other data. Prevent potential isolation due to flooding, or that island effect, where we can't get to you in case of we may not be able to get supplies to islands within the county. If the river floods, it gets cut off from all major rivers. And the last reason was to increase pre-storm preparedness and create a more resilient. Any questions about the Know Your Zone program? We're going to come back with a panel discussion questionnaire or any questions that you have for us as the county, the health department, the weather service, and even the fire department. But for now, any questions directly related to the Know Your Zone program or anything I talked about so far? Next, I will turn it over to these lovely ladies from the health department. They're going to talk about some resources that are available. They're going to talk about some sheltering within the county, what that process looks like, what you can expect, what you should do. They'll mention Know Your Zone some, as well as hyperreach. We'll come back for some panel.
As long as y'all are fine with me yelling at you, I'm gonna do that as well. So like he said, my name is Taylor Thigpen. I'm a public health educator at the Duplin County Health Department.
I'm also a public health educator. My name is Cindy Zuniga.
And we're gonna talk to you today about the shelters. It is gonna be short and sweet, but we do have pamphlets on stuff that he talked about, as well as stuff that we're gonna talk about as well. So first of all, why do shelters open? Most commonly in our county is due to severe weather. Hurricanes being the most prominent, but it also can be flooding as well as tornadoes. Another one that people don't really think about is extreme heat or cold. which doesn't, again, happen as often, but it also is possible. As well as mass public health hazards, which would be a fire in an apartment complex or a massive sewage leak in a trailer park.
So our shelter partners, we collaborate with Brooklyn Department of Social Services, DSS. DSS will be handling registration and providing meals. Our Brooklyn EMS will be assisting in any medical emergencies or needs. Our Brooklyn Emergency Management will help with resource requests. Our Brooklyn Law Enforcement will be there for on-site security. Our American Red Cross will be assisting with resources and operation of our shelter. And Animal Control will be assisting with any pet needs. So our potential shelter locations, when needed, are Wallace Rose Hill High School, James Cannon High School, North Duplin, it's combined, North Duplin, Villaville Elementary. But we also want to note that these shelters will close 72, 96 hours after opening.
And these are also subject to change, just depending, on different things, but we will notify you. So the health department's roles and responsibilities, first and foremost, the health department is really just there to help. I've never worked for a shelter, but from what I've been told, we're just there to do whatever is needed. So whatever that looks like, we're there. We will be doing health promotion activities as well as providing disease education while we're there. We'll also be collecting health histories on all of the patients or just people in the shelters. And then we will be doing nursing assessments as well as conducting surveillances on all of the patients, as well as collaborating with partners for referrals to medical facilities. So this is just based on the severity of the patient's care. For instance, if we had a patient who was on dialysis and hasn't gotten dialysis in 3 days and they're to that point, we would do what we needed to get them to the hospital or a different facility.
So what to bring to a shelter? You should bring your prescription medications, eyeglasses, hearing aids, dentures, personal hygiene items, important documentation. That could be like your insurance card or your ID, any necessary to life medical equipment. What not to bring to the shelters, as obvious reasons, weapons, illegal drugs, alcohol, and unnecessary items.
So what to expect, like Eric said, this is not the Holiday Inn, and this is not a 3-day staycation. It is just how it's depicted right here. It is the living space will be in a gym. You'll be sleeping on a cot. There will be food and clean water provided, as well as restrooms. There's potential shower access, but that's just, here or there, as well as potential calm zones, for child's needs as well as lactation. But again, this is specifically for emergency situation.
So your medication. You should have enough medication to last at least 2 weeks. Medication should be an original bottle with medication name and patient name. Note that shelter nursing staff we can only provide over-counter medication like Tylenol or Motrin, not prescription medication.
So for pets, before a disaster occurs, everyone with a pet, kind of like you was talking about before, that's your vulnerability, that's what you're responsible for. So everyone with a pet should have a plan. Kind of going back on the Holiday Inn, we don't have a zoo either. We have animal disaster relief trailers if we need them, but that is strictly if we need them.
So how can employers help employees prepare for a disaster? So you should be aware of weather reports and status of storms to cancel work. Encourage employees to create preparedness plans for their families. Employers can encourage staff to create go bags for their families and distribute preparedness and self-defense to employees. So as Brian mentioned earlier, we do have the hyper reach alerts. You can take a moment, stick out your phone, and you can just take a picture of the QR code, and it will send you to the website so you can register.
Also, for those of you who don't want to do that now, we have handouts with that
Yes.
information on it.
I would definitely encourage folks, and I see some of your phones out now, but the young ladies will help you. HyperReach is a great program to get alerts from the county, not just weather service, but anything going on. So that's, I didn't see a lot of hands that were familiar with it, so this is a great opportunity to see them and get that on your phone. You can get a lot of good information sent to you.
Does anybody have any questions?
Don't have any smartphones, how do you get the information? Right,
No, no. And we can, they will do that in panel part. If you don't have a smartphone or you're not that long. We'll deal with that.
I'm gonna put a piece of wire back there.
So at this time, we're going to call up a couple of the speakers. So Mr. Brian, the young ladies, and the training. So we can time that out. That signifies the end of the talk. So, convenience, can you get a couple? All right, I think we are done with the training. Yeah, we timed that out, so that kind of gave you a chance to go to the bathroom and collect yourself. So the lady in the back had asked a really good question. If you don't have a smartphone, are you just out of luck? And the answer is no. Mr. Bryan and the young ladies are going to mention a couple of resources. Before they do the weather service, the NOAA weather radio, that's just battery powered. It's just, we have a transmitter in Warsaw, so you can get information over the radio. But they're going to mention a couple of things you can do, and you don't need one of these for that.
To answer the question, you do not need a smartphone to sign up for HyperReach. HyperReach has the ability to call landlines, to call any kind of cell phone. The text messaging option is dependent upon the capabilities of your phone. But your standard cell phone, your standard house phone, landline, it's still going to call those numbers just like it would any other phone. The only thing that you really need internet for is to sign up for the perk. And I feel pretty confident that if you'll come visit the Faison Fire Department, if you don't have access to the internet, you'll visit your local fire department. I feel pretty confident that they will help you get signed up for it. You can call our office. We'll help you get signed up for it. I can give you that number if you would like it. It is 910-296-2160. I'll say it one more time, 910-296-2160. If you'll call that number, Ms. Brittany at the front desk, she'll answer, and she'll she'll get you set up in the program based off of your address.
Any other questions from the audience? If you're like me, I might not look like it, but I never like asking questions in front of people. So we'll also, at the end, as we wrap things up, you can just come up to us. And if you do need to leave, Ms. Darrell at the back has a lot of good information. The Weather Service, we brought some brochures. One of the best things is the hurricane guide from the state, covers everything I talked about. You know, rainfall, rip currents, tornadoes, what's happening to your kid. Mr. Bryan mentioned Know Your Zone, that's in there as well. So please leave with some literature because there's a lot of good information to say.
Got a question.
Yes.
And you may have covered it in the shelter portion, and if you did, I apologize for reading that. Does Duplin County have a specific shelter for high-risk populations such as elderly, or are all shelters open at the same time?
All shelters are going to be able to provide the same capabilities and service. We do have medical personnel on site. They're capable of performing some minor medical tasks. We will have oxygen on site.
Well, the reason I asked, I used to live in Colorado County, we had a specific shelter that was geared for high risk if sea level had to evacuate, and it was a long-term care facility. Right, there was a set place for those high risk folks, and they also had Newport Middle School that was designated as an animal shelter. The other set up for that. So I didn't know if that was something similar here.
Yeah, all four shelters will have the ability to provide some basic medical care. Anything complex or complicated, the state opens a state-supported medical shelter. It's almost in a hospital setting with nurses and doctors and medical personnel. So the opportunity is there and available. Higher.
Thank you. Any other questions from the audience? These are great questions, and whenever you ask a question like that, other people might have the same one as well. Just a reminder for some, I know folks have had to come and go. We've got a lot of stuff going on. All of this is being recorded, and not you all, but speakers up here. So on the National Weather Service YouTube channel, NWS Morehead City, we will post that. We'll share it with Brian, Health Department. So I'm sure it'll get out many different ways, but this is all recorded. So if you missed a part, you didn't have a pen, you need to go back over it. That's why we're doing it. So that you can check that out. Yes, ma'am.
I thought if somebody needs to go to a center that doesn't do that, is our rec center, is that considered shelter?
That's what I was.
Give American call.
We were approved years and years ago. We've got a generator, we've got all the supplies, materials.
Absolutely true. Florence, I think it became a pop-up shelter. It's not a county shelter, but the Red Cross had an agreement with the shelter there. I have not yet met with the new mayor. No.
Yeah,
I'll give you my card. We'll talk because we would love to get you back on the list. It's needed.
we had everything ready for the last one. We had everything ready just in case.
Thank you. All right. we'll talk.
Brian, I would add, I don't know how many people know, Faison has a boat. We got. We've got, and we got back to being behind. We've also acquired a a old army truck with high speed. And we got a car donated recently, maybe old army truck. So we have got 2 vehicles close by that can give out and lift truck as well as some high level trucks. Such as they got people do, that we are prepared here. We've got 70 years into school, the school. Go into water rescue. That's one thing. To the grant.
Transportation provided to the children.
I'm just going to repeat it. The question from the audience, just as for the online recording, is transportation provided to the shelters if needed?
Second, Brian, please jump in here. Generally, we do not provide transportation to and from the shelters. We take a request into the emergency operations center that we see a need, that there is a vetted request for that transportation. We can make things happen, but obviously we can't transport everyone in the entire county to and from the shelters. It's just not possible. We don't have the staff to do that. But we see an emergent situation that's in a life-threatening scenario. Yes.
May I put in a plug too for shelters? We're partners with Duplin County. They open them and they keep them open for around 72 hours. And then if it's deemed that they need to stay open, the Red Cross comes in and we transition over. But it's important for people to know that the Red Cross is in 5 different responses right there. And I'm going to go today to go to Hawaii because there's 2 cyclones coming in. So, Mr. Mayor, would love to train some of your townspeople to run your shelter. It's just a resource issue. You know, we'll give you what you need. We'll give you food, cots, whatever. We may not have the people resources. So, you on that.
Billy, before you leave, get with Daryl.
I thought I had business card and I don't, but I.
So that's the reality of things. That's not the weather services lane, tell you evacuate, what shelter to go. But I've been here long enough that as much as you can do on your own, family, friends, church, neighbors, relying on the community, to leave to a hotel or to leave the family, all the folks that visit us, try that to help you to get to a shelter, to have 7 days worth of stuff. As much as you can do on your own. It's not that anybody in this room doesn't want to do it. We're all stretched very thin, whether it's financially, resource-wise, even down to the weather service office in Newport. So that's why we do these things. So you can think about this today. How can I help the community? How can I help our neighbor? How can I help my parents? Those types of things. Because it's really hard in a storm when you don't have the resources like another area you might have.
I have a question, and question is, because I work shelters in Johnston County, never in the schools. And when you said DSS would provide food, what is their food source? Because what happened in Johnston County was the shelters were in schools, and they wound up using the products that were in the schools, and we kept shelters open for as much as 12 days. So,
Right, back up on this, in my knowledge, we use the school's food as well.
Yeah, so we partnership with the school. We utilize the food that's on site as the initial source, and we also have MREs, bottled water. pre-staged in the event that it becomes a long-term process due to damage flooding.
When we were involved in that, we didn't see the MREs. We really deleted our own supplies.
We pre-stage MREs, pallets of water, as a secondary source.
And even while the county is doing the management, if the Red Cross came, they'll. You know, if it's a flood, if it's roads are impassable, we did a helicopter to the shelter. It becomes very tricky. It roads open right now, and in a half hour it isn't. So, but just know that there's a lot of people working to make it as.
I also had people working that wanted to do inventory at midnight in a freezer. And the school system, we didn't open it because the whole point was freezer. So that if the electricity went out, we didn't have an issue.
Those policies are difficult to carry through.
Most of you in this room remembers Florida. Just this department here in Faison, James, I'm not going to chime in on Florida. Our resources were absolutely awesome. We had, just like Luke said, we just had a few people, or a lot of people on that interstate. That's where the gym came into play. We had them housed here in this building. They were parked in the parking lot down in Piggly Wiggly. All wanting food, wanting bathrooms.
Only flood, couldn't get water. And so then, I mean, this is where we got swamped with, and the gym kind of quick up enough to the gym, and I think eventually they found it out. But I mean, we didn't have where we're going to go, and, you know, here, one, people that did that. And like you said, you have to wait. They don't come back next day. That's what we had. People coming back. During the storm, all they thought it was ugly. And it was flooded. I think 50 years for a project. And, you know, we were an island. We had no smoke. And when they lived in.
There's no easy answers, and it takes a village, and more we can work together. They need you, we need you. But we can make it happen. We can make it as easy as we can. The terrible situation, it's not perfect. I lied to you. So, you know, this is hard stuff. And we get it, we'll do the best we can.
Any other questions? So it goes back to the very beginning. Do something after tonight, do something this weekend, get your bottle of water, get your canned goods, spread it out. That will spread out the financial impact. That will make sure you do it. You can push up to 7 days on your own, then you might not need to go to a shelter. You might not need to rely on a food source. Try to spread this information. It's been a great evening. It's great weather outside. Again, we're going to have a recording posted. And really want to thank you for coming on out because this is the first step. Talking about it, we don't even have a storm on the horizon, knock on wood. So that's a good thing. And if we don't get one this year, that's great. Then we'll be ready and we'll know what to do next year because we live in an awesome area. And it's our responsibility to be prepared so that when we don't get anything, that's fine. Then we're just ready. All that much better for next year. Just go on with our life and enjoy where we live. So appreciate having us. Welcome to come on up, chat with us. Yes.
Folks, I wanted to let you know who sponsored this tonight. This was sponsored by what we call of the LEC, the Local Emergency Planning Committee of Duplin County. Every county in the state is required to have a local emergency planning committee. And I am presently chairman of the Local Emergency Planning Committee. Our secretary, Greg, could not be here tonight. Our vice president is Daryl. And Daryl's going to talk for just a minute about the LEPC to let you know just a little bit about it. But tonight was sponsored by the Duplin County LEPC.
The local emergency planning committee is mandated. It oversees the hazardous materials in the county and being transported to the county. It supports emergency management and responding to safety response. We have a lot of big farming and other kinds of refrigeration. There's more hazardous material in this county. Becoming all hazardous sort of thing. So we thought that this might be with some people in the community and hear what you have to say and do what we can to keep the communication. By the way, all of our meetings are open. Probably not to the extent that they are. And you're all, I will leave on the website. Any other thoughts?
Again, thank y'all for coming tonight. And if you have any questions and want to hang around for a little bit and talk to Eric or Daryl, April, Brian, Matt, any of the rest of them, please do so. Thank y'all.